They found that grocery store consolidation has increased significantly over the last 3 decades. When grocers consolidate, farmers have fewer options to sell their goods. And as a result of this, they have less negotiating power when it comes to securing contracts. So their hands are tied. I've had many conversations with farmers all across Georgia. It's a tough business. The margins are very narrow. These kinds of things make a big difference. And so in order to cut down on their bottom line, grocers often require farmers to fulfill larger and larger contracts at lower and lower and lower prices. And so it becomes a volume business. Small and mid-sized farmers get squeezed from both sides because they can't produce the quantity required at the prices demanded by these big retailers. In short, farmers are forced to either get big or get out. Mr. Maxwell, you're a farmer. What pressures are you and your fellow farmers feeling right now because of this reality?
Senator, you described the reality of market opportunity. We would suggest that in most instances the market is dead, that the farmers become price takers. They no longer have the ability to recover the production of cost, and far too often, because of concentration, are reliant upon government subsidies in order to make a profit at the end of the year. When government increases those subsidies, like reference pricing, then those companies, like I testified earlier to, simply set a higher price to the farmer because they know the farmer is going to receive more funds. They just go after it because there's no competition. So that's the reality that we're living in, squeezed from both ends and trying to wiggle in the middle just so there can be the next generation on our farm.
Yeah, we're seeing it in even large producers. I'm a lover of Vidalia onions down in Vidalia, Georgia, but large producers, well-known products like Vidalia onions are feeling the pressure. And this certainly starts with market consolidation. That's part of the issue, right?
Yes, Senator. We visited with some of your Vidalia onion farmers in Georgia, and they are feeling the pressure as they have to expand because there's not a market opportunity to move the onions into a market at the volume that they're currently producing. And so their choice, as you described earlier, is either to get bigger or get out, leaving many of those farmers, multi-generation farmers, burdened with the cost of the production they've had in the past and no market to move their onions
So
to.
decreased competition impact all the way down the food chain in a different sense of the word, all the way down to the consumer.
The concentration impacts the prices, input prices to farmers who are consumers, and then ultimately those prices move on into the stream, forcing the retail consumer, grocery retail consumer, to see higher prices in the grocery store. The odd thing is if you look in the middle, the folks making the most money are those concentrated processors, meat processors, the JBSs, the Tysons, the Cargills, the processors that the chair mentioned earlier this afternoon, and ultimately the consumer pays the price at the grocery store retail shelf.
Analysis, to go to a different subject or related subject, analysis from the Reinvestment Fund finds that nearly 1 million Georgians live in a community with limited access to a grocery store, 15% increase over the prior decade, and USDA has found that this greater consolidation in rural, it's greater in rural counties than in larger markets. While rural communities are responsible for producing the food that feeds our country, rural residents are often some of the most food insecure, ironically, among us. And we know that people of color in rural areas are more likely to face hunger because of a lack of food access. In 2021, Black Americans in rural communities were 2.2 times more likely to face hunger than white Americans. Dr. Owens, because of a consolidated grocery industry, many rural Americans must travel farther to get to the grocery store, often with fewer nutritious and healthy options. How would more competition in the grocery sector benefit rural communities?
Yeah, absolutely. Grocery inflation in rural areas is running above grocery inflation in other areas. So more competition and more access to more and different grocers in rural areas would absolutely help families get better deals at the grocery store.
Thank you so much. I'm sure we could say a lot more on this subject, but in the final analysis, corporate consolidation in the grocery sector is driving up prices and leaving Americans, particularly those in rural communities, with fewer options than before. Ensuring healthy options exist for all Georgians, regardless of where they live, needs to be a priority of Congress, and it's something that I continue to work on. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Senator Warnock.